If you ask anyone who the most annoying card to face off against in Clash Royale, in terms of not just brokenness, but just pure annoyingness, you'll probably get two answers: Dark Goblin and Firecracker. And the latter is the subject of this video. In this video, we'll talk about the basics of Firecracker, and then talk about the nuances surrounding her, and why she's considered to be so annoying. Usually we would talk about matchups to other cards, but in this video there will be more of an emphasis on her relationship to spells. And as always, we'll end off talking about the godforsaken evolution of hers. As always, make sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with these PowerPoints. I do other stuff that helps out, like liking and hyping the video, though I have no idea if that actually helps. Also, make sure to join our Discord server and become a member if you have disposable income and want some cool perks. With the ads out of the way, let's get into the video. Let's start out with the basics. Firecracker is a 3 elixir card, being fast with a speed of 90. Her main attack is pretty interesting, as once it hits a target, it splits into 5 additional shrapnel, recoiling a tile after hitting the attack. Each one of her shrapnel thingies deals 93 damage for a total of 465, and a DPS of 155. Some other interesting things about her is that she has quite a long range of 6 tiles, which is of course even longer when you consider the shrapnel. She's also quite swishy with a health of 442, which means that she has the distinction of being one of the few cards that can kill the same card in one shot. With the basics out of the way, let's talk a little bit more about her. Interestingly, I'm going to make a cross-game comparison to her before I talk about anything else. To Penny from Brawl Stars. If you play the game, you know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, she has a very similar mechanic in which her attacks split into shrapnel after hitting an enemy. The main distinction I would say between them is that Firecracker is based on being annoying and surviving, while Penny is more of a controller and fights at a mid-range rather than a long range. Okay, back to Clash Royale. Let's talk about Firecracker's gameplay first. There's one big thing you gotta know for Firecracker first. She's a supporting character. I've seen too many people use her solo to get chip damage on the tower, and this can be very easily punished, which I'll talk about in a little bit. However, the main objective with Firecracker is basically one thing and one thing only: keep her alive as long as possible. The moment you place down the Firecracker, especially in double elixir, you should be thinking about protecting it. This is why you will often face Firecrackers at the back of a push. This is actually for two reasons: protection of course, but also to utilize the most value out of her shrapnel. The farther she is, the more likely she's to hit multiple enemies with the shrapnel, which is great for crowd control. Speaking of crowd control, Firecracker has a complicated relationship with swarm cards. You would be right in assuming that Firecracker is really solid against swarms, as if she's in a nice distance and angle from them, she can be really good at effectively taking down swarms. However, things change in other scenarios, like if she's facing a skeleton army or goblin gang with a mid angle and range, she'll lose the matchup. And one thing you have to keep in mind with her is her matchup against Skeleton Barrel. She often interestingly loses that matchup, because she just for some reason malfunctions whenever the skeletons actually drop. This is why you have to play your Firecracker at a very specific spot when facing off against the Skelly Barrel for it to actually work. Speaking of this whole thing, her targeting AI is for some reason one of her biggest weaknesses. Sometimes, usually when there's a lot of enemies near her at different positions, she hesitates to shoot, which can be really annoying, though I don't believe it's as common as it used to be. And speaking of annoying, let's just talk about why Firecracker is so annoying. The main problem with her is of course her recoil mechanic. Every time she attacks, she moves back a tile. This can be extremely annoying for a multitude of reasons, as you can guess. First of all, it allows her to stay far behind or get behind other troops, which isn't fun, especially if you place a troop especially to kill it. Second, it can potentially dodge a spell like Zap or Log, which is especially true if you're trying to get multiple troops within one spell. Thirdly, it just delays the killing of her, which can be really annoying as it sometimes can take forever to actually kill her, especially for slower cards like P.E.K.K.A, who can be taken advantage of as a result. Of course, that's not the only reason she's so annoying. Another big reason is her long range. This, of course, allows for her to usually attack enemies before getting attacked. However, more importantly, it allows her to actually continue to stay far away from enemies. When you place her behind other troops of yours, you often don't have to actually worry about her getting into the fray of the battle. She's often just going to stay far away because she'll be sniping enemies at a long range, and thus not get close to enemies. In fact, she'll get even farther sometimes with her recoil mechanic. And that's not all. Probably the most annoying part of her long range is her ability to hit the Princess Tower from outside its range. This is an ability only a few cards in the game have, let alone troops, and of course, one of the most annoying cards in the game has it. This can be extremely annoying, as it not only damages your cards of course, but gets extra chip damage on the tower that can be the difference in a close game. And you can make this even more annoying by placing a tank in front of the Firecracker, like a Knight or a Mega Knight, just to keep the Firecracker doing as much damage for as long as it can. But this is where spells come in, right? They're the only thing in the game that attacks the thing you want it to, so surely it does the job for Firecracker. Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. Let's first talk about the relationship that Firecracker has to spells. Obviously, Rocket and Clone are some of the best counters to her, so keep that in mind the next time you play against me, and use Rocket and Clone against my Firecrackers. Okay, but seriously, Fireball and Poison are effective in taking her down, but the problem is of course the loss in the elixir trade. Zap, Log, and Snowball can't one-shot her, which can be really annoying if she is well protected at a low health. This is where Bar Barrel comes in, right? Well, yes, it's pretty good for finishing the job on Firecracker, but it's still quite limited, in that you can't really get to her if she's too far back, and she can also be defended before she dies. So, this is where other spells come in, like Vines and Arrows. These guys have a neutral elixir trade against Firecracker, and actually manage to kill her. However, there's yet another big problem with these guys. Most Firecrackers are often seen in Psycho decks, and the example I'm going to use is Hog EQ. With such a fast Psycho deck, there are two big pros. First, you can cycle back to another Firecracker faster than they can cycle to their Arrows or Vines or whatever. Second, if they don't have such spells, you can start stacking Firecrackers, which I can tell from experience is very annoying. With all I said, you would think Firecracker is one of the best cards in the game. You would be right, if you were in mid-ladder like me. However, her play rates and win percentage don't reflect that at the top ladder. I mean, basically no one plays her there. So, is she another mid-ladder menace, a sort of noob stomper? Well, yeah, she is. I mean, she's really annoying for people who don't really know how to counter her. But at the top level, people aren't as, well, stupid as we are, as in you and me. And so, don't really find her as much of an annoyance. I mean, the biggest weakness with Firecracker is her ability, or disability, to activate the King Tower, which is very easily exploited. Usually, to activate the King Tower, you need some sophisticated kiting placements or something like a tornado, but it's so much easier with a Firecracker. Just place a card at honestly a lot of different spots near the Princess Tower, but in front of the King Tower, and you can get a free King Tower activation. Even in 2v2s, simply just having a Firecracker connect to the tower will activate the King Tower. Now, let's talk about her Evo. The Firecracker's Evo basically shoots out the same exact shot as the regular Firecracker, but the 5 shrapnel continue traveling even further, with the initial shot and the small shrapnel leaving sparks behind, which deals damage every 0.25 seconds, like poison. It's honestly a solid evolution and can deal serious damage if you leave it unchecked, though a simple arrows can take care of it. However, it used to be much more annoying, so thankfully it got nerfed to its current state. Overall, Firecracker was basically designed for one thing, and one thing only: cause the maximum amount of annoyance possible. With her recoil mechanic, her long range, and her placements behind tankier troops, it's easy to see just why she's so hated, especially in mid-ladder. However, other than a few exceptions, she's rarely seen in top ladder due to some glaring weaknesses, especially her ability to activate the King Tower. As always, thanks to NewGlance, and thanks for watching. Watch this video, or this playlist, or join the Discord server.